On a small planet far from Earth, there lived a gentle alien mother named Nira. She had 2 young daughters, Lyra and Miri. The planet was quiet, filled with silver trees and glowing rivers, but it was also very poor. Food was rare, and every season it became harder for families to survive. Nira loved her daughters more than anything. She worked every day, searching for fruits and roots, but often she returned home with only a little. She would give her share to the girls and pretend that she had already eaten, though in truth she was hungry most of the time. The daughters were too young to understand the sacrifice, but they could feel the care in her voice whenever she spoke to them. One night, Nira sat outside their small home looking at the stars. Her daughters were asleep inside, holding each other for warmth. She whispered to herself that she would do anything to see them grow strong and happy. As she stared at the glowing sky, she remembered stories she had heard in the village. Traders sometimes came from other worlds, and they valued things that were not simple food or stone. Some said the traders bought rare crystals. Others said they desired living energy, even parts of life itself. The thought stayed in Nira's mind. She wondered if she could give something of herself for her children. The idea frightened her, but she could not ignore it. She thought of her heart. It was not like a human heart, but a bright, living core that gave her strength and warmth. Without it, she would not live for long, but perhaps with it she could buy food for her daughters. The next day she walked to the edge of the village, where strange ships sometimes landed. She carried nothing but a piece of cloth to cover her core if she chose to offer it. She waited for hours until a human ship appeared in the sky. It landed with a soft hum, and from it stepped a tall man named Daniel. He wore simple clothes, and his face carried no harshness, only curiosity. The villagers were afraid of him, for they did not trust strangers. But Nira walked forward, her step steady. She greeted him in the common trade language. Daniel smiled and replied kindly. He explained that he was a traveler, collecting knowledge and rare things to bring back to Earth. Nira looked at her daughters standing far behind her, waiting with worried eyes. Then she turned back to Daniel. In a quiet voice, she told him that she wished to sell something valuable. Daniel asked what it was. With trembling hands, Nira uncovered the cloth on her chest, and a soft light shone out. Her living heart glowed like a small sun. Daniel was startled. He had seen many rare things in his travels, but never an alien offering her very life. He asked why she would want to sell it. Nira explained slowly that her daughters were hungry, and she had nothing left to give them. If her heart could buy them food and safety, she was ready to make that trade. For a long moment, Daniel could not answer. He looked at the 2 little girls, then back at their mother. Her eyes were calm, but filled with love so deep that it made his chest heavy. He thought about Earth, about his own mother who had always given him everything she could. Daniel finally nodded. He said he would accept her heart, but inside he was troubled. He took the glowing core carefully and gave Nira a box full of food, medicines, and warm clothes. Her daughters rushed to her side, touching the gifts with wonder. They were too young to know what their mother had given away. Nira felt weak without her heart, but she smiled. She told her daughters to eat and grow strong. Daniel stood there silently, holding the bright core in his hands. He thought about what he had just done, and he knew this story was not over. Something in him told him he could not simply keep what she had given. As the night fell on the silver trees and glowing rivers, Nira sat with her daughters. She was tired, yet at peace, because she had chosen love over life. Daniel returned to his ship, but his mind was full of questions. The gift in his hand was more than a treasure. It was a mother's sacrifice, and he was not sure if it belonged to him at all. Daniel sat inside his ship, holding the glowing heart in both hands. It was warm like a small sun, and he could feel a strange rhythm inside it. He had collected crystals, metals, even rare plants from many worlds, but this was different. This was alive. It carried a story, and it carried love. He placed the heart inside a clear case on his desk, where it floated gently. The light filled the room with a soft gold glow. But Daniel could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Nira's calm face, the way she had given away her life without fear, and the eyes of her daughters watching her with trust. The next morning, Daniel left his ship to walk around the village. He wanted to see how Nira and her daughters were doing. The villagers kept their distance, but the children followed him with curiosity. Soon he found Nira sitting near her home. She looked weaker than before, but her daughters were eating the food he had given them. Their faces were brighter, their smiles wide as they shared fruit and bread. When Nira saw Daniel, she thanked him in a soft voice. She told him her daughters had not eaten so well in many months. Daniel nodded, but his chest felt heavy. He did not want thanks because deep inside, he knew he had taken something that should not be taken. He sat with her for a while. The daughters came to him and offered him a small piece of fruit. Daniel accepted it with a smile. He felt warmth in his heart, but at the same time he felt the weight of the glowing core resting inside his ship. Days passed, and Daniel stayed longer in the village. He helped bring water from the river. He repaired broken tools with his machines, and he taught the children small tricks, like how to make light with simple wires. The villagers slowly began to trust him, but every evening Daniel noticed Nira becoming weaker. Her steps were slower, her voice quieter. Without her heart, she was fading. She tried to hide it, always smiling at her daughters, but Daniel could see the truth. One night, he returned to his ship and looked at the glowing heart again. He asked himself why he had accepted it. Was it right to let a mother die so her children could live? He thought about Earth, where mothers and fathers also sacrificed everything for their children. But giving away a living heart was beyond any sacrifice he had ever known. Daniel sat for hours thinking. The heart pulsed with soft light as if it was alive and waiting. He placed his hand on the case and whispered to himself that maybe it was not his to keep. The next morning, he walked again to Nira's home. Her daughters were playing outside, but Nira was lying on a blanket, too weak to rise. She smiled faintly when she saw him. She thanked him once more for the food that had saved her children. Daniel could not stay silent. He told her she had given too much. He said no mother should have to lose her own heart to feed her children. Nira looked at him with calm eyes and answered that mothers always give more than they have. She said if her daughters lived, then her choice was right. Her words touched him deeply. He left without replying, but his mind was clear now. He returned to his ship, opened the case, and took the glowing heart in his hands. It felt warm, almost like it was calling out to return home. That night he stood outside under the silver trees, looking at the stars. He thought about the journey that had brought him here. He was a traveler who searched for treasures, but maybe the greatest treasure was not something to own. Maybe it was something to give back. Daniel held the glowing heart close and made his decision. He would return it to Nira. Her daughters needed her, and she deserved to live. He realized he had come to this planet not to collect, but to learn what true love and sacrifice meant. The next day would be the day he returned the gift. The morning sun rose gently over the silver trees, painting the ground with soft light. Daniel carried the glowing heart in his hands, covered with a cloth so no one in the village would see it. The warmth of the heart spread through his arms, and he felt its rhythm matching his own heartbeat. He knew this was the moment to return what was never his. When he reached Nira's home, her daughters were outside, gathering small flowers to decorate their mother's blanket. They greeted Daniel with cheerful smiles and ran to show him the colors they had collected. He knelt down to see them, but his eyes moved quickly to Nira. She lay weak and pale, her breath shallow, yet her smile remained for her children. Daniel stepped closer. He sat beside her and placed the cloth on the ground. Nira looked at him with tired eyes, and he could see the light of her strength fading. He spoke gently. He told her that he had thought long about what she had given him. He said her heart was not a treasure to be kept, but a gift that belonged with her daughters. Then slowly he uncovered the cloth. The glow lit the air, and the girls gasped as the warm light touched their faces. Nira's eyes widened. She looked at Daniel with surprise, then with quiet tears. She whispered that he should keep it, because he had already paid with food and medicine, but Daniel shook his head firmly. He said no amount of food or riches could equal the love she carried inside her. A mother's heart was not something to be bought. It was something sacred. The daughters stepped closer, holding hands. They did not fully understand, but they could feel something important was happening. Daniel lifted the glowing heart and placed it gently near Nira's chest. The light brightened as if it recognized its home. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the glow spread across her body, filling her with warmth. Nira gasped softly, her breath growing stronger. Her eyes closed and her face relaxed as the heart returned to its place. The glow slowly faded inside her, leaving her whole again. The daughters cried with joy and hugged their mother. They called her name, and Nira opened her eyes with a smile brighter than the sun. She touched their heads and pulled them close, feeling their warmth and life against her. She looked at Daniel with gratitude too deep for words. Daniel stood quietly watching. His chest felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. He realized he had not only returned a heart but also returned hope to a family. He had come as a traveler, but now he felt like something more. The villagers, curious about the bright light, began to gather. They saw Nira standing again, stronger than before, holding her daughters close. They looked at Daniel with new respect. Whispers spread through the crowd. The human had not taken but given back. The people who had feared him now saw kindness in him. An elder of the village stepped forward. He told Daniel that few outsiders understood the value of family, but Daniel had shown that he did. He said Daniel was welcome to stay among them as long as he wished. Daniel bowed his head, humbled by the words. That evening, the village held a small gathering. They lit lanterns by the river, and the children danced while elders sang songs of thanks. Nira sat with her daughters beside Daniel. She told him that he had given her back more than life. He had given her daughters their future. Daniel replied quietly that he had only done what was right. He told her that her courage had taught him something he would never forget. Nira smiled, and the daughters leaned against her, happy and safe. As the lanterns floated above the glowing river, Daniel looked at the sky. The stars shimmered like endless stories waiting to be told. He wondered if his journey through the universe was changing. Maybe he was not just a collector of rare things. Maybe he was meant to carry lessons of love and hope from one world to another. In his heart, he knew his time with this family was not over. Something greater was waiting, a path that would connect him to them in ways he could not yet see. The days in the village slowly grew brighter after Nira's heart was returned. With her strength back, she could care for her daughters again. Lyra and Miri laughed more often, their cheeks full with the food Daniel had provided. They no longer feared hunger. Every evening, their small home was filled with warmth, the kind that came not only from meals but from love and safety. Daniel spent his days helping where he could. He taught the villagers how to use simple tools from his ship, like small devices that purified water or tiny lamps that glowed without fire. The children followed him everywhere, curious about his gadgets and eager to learn. The villagers began to call him a friend, but inside Daniel's heart, questions grew. He often sat near the glowing river at night, staring at the stars. He thought about Earth, about his long journeys collecting treasures from other planets. For the first time, he wondered if he had been searching for the wrong things. The most valuable thing he had found was not crystal or metal, but the courage of a mother who had given everything for her daughters. One evening, Nira joined him by the river. The lanterns from the village floated gently on the water, glowing like stars on the surface. She thanked him again, not with heavy words, but with a simple smile. Daniel told her that he did not deserve thanks. He said he had learned more from her than she could imagine. Nira looked at the water and spoke softly. She said her people often believed outsiders could not understand the bond between family, but Daniel had shown them otherwise. She told him that her daughters now looked up to him as someone they could trust. Hearing this filled Daniel with quiet pride, yet also responsibility. Lyra and Miri soon grew attached to him. They would wait by his ship each morning, asking to see new things. He showed them how to plant seeds from earth that grew into bright flowers, and how to use a small device to make music. The girls laughed as the strange sounds filled the air, and they danced around their mother. Daniel laughed with them, though his heart sometimes felt heavy with thoughts of leaving. He knew he could not stay forever. His ship was built for travel, and Earth was waiting for his return. Yet the thought of leaving this family behind brought a sadness he had never known before. He began to ask himself what it truly meant to be human among the stars. Was it to collect and keep, or to give and share? One night, as he sat outside his ship, the village elder approached. The elder was a quiet man with wise eyes. He sat beside Daniel and told him that the villagers had seen his kindness. He said Daniel had given them more than tools. He had given them hope. The elder then asked a simple question. What will you carry with you when you leave this place? Daniel did not answer right away. He thought of the glowing heart, of Nira's sacrifice, of the children's smiles. He realized he would carry their story not as an object but as a lesson. He told the elder that the greatest treasure he had found was love, and he would share that wherever he went. The elder nodded with a gentle smile. He said that some treasures could not be weighed or traded, but they changed the universe all the same. The following morning, Daniel began preparing his ship. The villagers gathered, curious and sad, for they knew his time with them might end soon. Nira and her daughters stood close, watching every step. Lyra asked if he was leaving, her small voice trembling. Daniel knelt beside her and Miri. He told them that his journey was not over, but he would always carry them in his heart. He promised that one day he might return. The girls hugged him tightly, and Nira's eyes shone with quiet emotion. Though his ship was ready, Daniel did not leave that day. He stayed a little longer because something inside him whispered that his story with this family was still unfolding. The universe was wide, but for now his place was here under the silver trees and glowing rivers where he had learned the true meaning of sacrifice and love. The village had grown used to Daniel's presence. His laughter with the children, his helpful hands, and his gentle ways became part of their daily lives. He was no longer seen as a stranger from the sky, but as someone who belonged among them. Even so, the thought of leaving stayed close in his mind. His ship was ready, but his heart was not. One morning, Nira invited Daniel to walk with her to the high cliffs beyond the silver forest. Lyra and Miri ran ahead, picking glowing flowers along the path. The air was fresh and the sky shimmered with two suns rising together. From the top of the cliffs, the view stretched far, with rivers shining like mirrors and mountains glowing faintly in the distance. Nira stood quietly, looking at the land. She said this world had given her daughter's life, but it had also tested her in ways she never imagined. She admitted that when she gave away her heart, she thought it would be the end. Instead, it had become a new beginning. She turned to Daniel and told him that his kindness had changed everything for her family. Daniel listened carefully. He wanted to tell her that she had changed him more than he had changed her. But the words stayed inside, heavy with meaning he could not fully express. Instead, he simply said that he was grateful to know them. The girls called out with laughter, showing the glowing flowers they had gathered. Daniel helped them weave the flowers into crowns, placing them gently on their heads. The daughters danced on the cliff, their bright crowns shining in the sun. For a moment, time seemed still, filled only with joy. That night, the village prepared a small celebration. They wanted to honor Daniel before he continued his journey. Lanterns were hung from every tree, and tables were filled with fruits, roots, and bread. Music rose into the air as children sang songs of thanks. Daniel sat among them, but his heart was restless. He looked at the smiling faces, the simple happiness that filled the village, and he wondered what he truly belonged to. Earth was his home, yet here he felt something deeper, something that tied him to these people. As the music played, Nira leaned toward him and asked if he was leaving soon. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried sadness. Daniel hesitated. He admitted that his ship was ready, but he was not sure if leaving was the right choice. He told her he felt connected to this place, as if the story between them was not finished. Nira nodded. She told him that journeys were not always about distance, but about understanding. She said whether he stayed or left, he would always be part of their lives. Later that night, when the celebration quieted and the villagers went to rest, Daniel walked to the river. He watched the lanterns drift across the glowing water. His reflection looked back at him, but he felt it was different now. He was not only a traveler, but also a keeper of the lessons he had learned here. As he stood in thought, the elder joined him again. The elder told him that sometimes the universe placed people in certain places for reasons unseen. He said Daniel had already left a mark on the village, and the village had left a mark on him. What he chose next would shape both paths. Daniel stayed silent, listening to the soft flow of the river. He realized he did not need all the answers now. He only needed to follow what felt true. And what felt true was the bond he shared with Nira, Lyra, and Miri. The next morning, the daughters ran to his ship as usual, asking him to show them something new. Daniel smiled and opened a small box of earth seeds. He told them that these seeds, once planted, would grow into tall trees that could live for hundreds of years. He gave the seeds to them, saying they would always be a reminder of his journey here. Lyra and Miri held the seeds carefully, their eyes shining with excitement. They promised to plant them by the river so the trees would grow strong and tall. Nira watched silently, her heart warm, knowing Daniel had given them something lasting. Daniel looked at them and felt peace. He knew he would leave one day, but his story here would not end. It would live in the trees, in the seeds, in the hearts of those who had touched his own. The seeds Daniel had given soon became the talk of the village. Lyra and Miri carried them everywhere in a small pouch, showing them proudly to anyone who asked. The villagers were curious, for they had never seen seeds from another world. Nira promised her daughters they would plant them by the glowing river when the right day came. Daniel felt happiness watching the excitement of the children. Each time they held the seeds in their small hands, he was reminded that his journey was leaving something behind, something that would grow even after he was gone. Yet with that joy came a quiet ache. The thought of leaving became harder each day. One afternoon, Daniel decided to take Lyra and Miri on a walk through the silver forest. They skipped ahead, laughing and chasing the bright-winged insects that glowed like lanterns. Nira followed with a gentle smile, her eyes calm but always watchful of her daughters. They reached a meadow filled with soft blue grass. Daniel showed the girls how to draw simple shapes in the soil, teaching them the letters of his language. The girls copied eagerly, laughing whenever their lines went crooked. Nira watched closely, and for the first time she tried writing a symbol herself. Daniel smiled, encouraging her, and soon they all laughed together. In that moment, it felt like they were one family. Daniel felt the warmth of belonging, a feeling he had not known even on Earth. But as the suns began to set, Daniel's thoughts grew heavy again. He knew his ship was ready for departure. He had messages waiting from Earth, a reminder that his mission as a traveler was not yet over. He wondered if he could balance two worlds, his duty to his people and his bond with this family. That night, Daniel sat alone inside his ship. He opened the messages from Earth, voices calling him back, reminding him of the importance of his work. They spoke of discoveries waiting, of knowledge to collect, of promises to fulfill. Yet while the words reached his ears, his heart wandered back to the village, to the laughter of the children and the calm strength of Nira. He closed the messages and looked at the stars through the window. He whispered to himself that sometimes duty and heart did not walk the same path. The next morning, as Daniel walked to the river, he saw Nira and her daughters waiting. Lyra and Miri held the pouch of seeds, their faces glowing with excitement. They told him today was the day they wanted to plant them. Daniel agreed, and together they chose a place near the riverbank where the water shimmered brightest. They dug small holes in the soil and placed the seeds carefully inside. The girls covered them with earth and patted the ground gently. Daniel told them to give the seeds time, for trees grew slowly, but once they were tall, they would remain for generations. Nira touched the soil with her hands, then looked at Daniel. She said the trees would carry his memory even if he traveled far away. Her words touched him deeply, and he felt the ache in his heart grow stronger. That evening, the villagers gathered by the river to bless the new planting. They sang softly a song of hope and growth while lanterns floated across the water. Daniel stood with Nira and her daughters, feeling the harmony of the moment. Later, when the villagers returned to their homes, Daniel stayed by the river. The stars reflected on the water, and he thought of the seeds beneath the soil, hidden yet alive. He thought of his own journey, hidden yet unfolding. Nira came to stand beside him. She did not speak at first, only stood in silence watching the water. Then she asked him what he truly wanted. Not what Earth wanted, not what duty called for, but what he himself desired. Daniel looked at her, then at the village behind her, at the daughters who had already fallen asleep on a blanket nearby. His voice was quiet when he answered. He said he wanted to belong, to share, to give more than he had taken. He admitted that he no longer knew if traveling among the stars was his true path. Nira listened, then placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. She told him that the universe was wide, but sometimes the greatest journey was not through the stars, but through the bonds we make with others. Daniel felt her words settle in his heart like truth. He looked at the river, at the planted seeds, at the small family he had come to love. For the first time, he wondered if maybe his ship did not need to take him away, but could become a bridge between his world and theirs. The next morning, Daniel woke early to watch the sunrise over the glowing river. The light shimmered on the water like liquid gold, and the air was cool with the scent of silver flowers. He could hear Lyra and Miri laughing as they ran toward the riverbank. Nira followed slowly, smiling at the girls as they played. Daniel knew today would be different. He had decided that he would stay longer in the village, to help the family grow stronger and to learn more about life among these gentle people. His ship remained ready, but his heart no longer called him to leave immediately. He realized that some journeys were not about traveling far, but about understanding the world in a new way. He spent the morning with the children, teaching them how to make small rafts from the light wood near the river. The girls were full of curiosity, asking endless questions about how things floated and why the water glowed. Daniel laughed with them as he helped their rafts stay balanced, and Nira watched from the riverbank, her eyes warm with pride. By midday, the village elders came to visit. They brought small gifts of food and handmade cloths, thanking Daniel for his guidance and patience. The elders spoke of how the village had changed since his arrival. Tools were better used, seeds were planted more carefully, and the children had learned new ways to observe and understand the world around them. Daniel listened humbly. He reminded them that the greatest lessons were not from him, but from Nira and her daughters. Their courage, kindness, and love had inspired him far more than anything he had ever seen on his travels. The elders nodded, understanding that sometimes wisdom came from acts of the heart rather than acts of power. Later in the afternoon, Nira asked Daniel to help with the river gardens. The seeds he had brought from Earth were now planted, and they were slowly taking root. Lyra and Mary dug carefully, watering each spot with small containers of water, their hands muddy but their spirits joyful. Daniel guided them, explaining how each seed needed care and patience. Nira joined in, showing her daughters how to be gentle and attentive, passing down lessons her own mother had once taught her. As the sun began to set, Daniel stood on the riverbank and watched the sky turn soft shades of pink and gold. The planted seeds shimmered faintly in the glow, a reminder that life could grow even in the smallest of places. He felt a sense of peace he had not known for years, a feeling that he had finally found a place where he belonged. That night, the village gathered around the glowing river for a small festival. The children ran with lanterns, their laughter echoing through the forest. Nira sat beside Daniel, her daughters resting in her lap. She thanked him quietly for staying, for choosing to care not only for her daughters but for the village as a whole. Daniel smiled, telling her that the choice had been easy. He had learned that family was not only blood or species, but the connections we nurture with love and respect. As the stars rose above the river, Daniel reflected on his travels. He had seen countless worlds, met many beings, and collected many treasures. Yet none had given him the lessons he had learned here. Here, he had witnessed sacrifice, love, and hope in its purest form. He realized that the universe itself was not only made of stars and planets, but of moments like these where hearts connect and grow together. Before heading to his ship, Daniel walked one last time along the riverbank. The lanterns reflected in the water, and the soft hum of the village created a melody of peace. Lyra and Miri ran to him, holding small flowers they had picked from the gardens. They placed the flowers in his hands and smiled, a gesture of gratitude that needed no words. Daniel held the flowers carefully. He knew he would stay a while longer, helping to plant more seeds, guide more lessons, and share more days with Nira and her daughters. His heart, once restless with the desire to travel, now felt settled, full of purpose. The glowing river, the silver trees, and the laughter of children had taught him that the greatest journeys were not always across galaxies, but within the hearts we touch and the lives we help grow. The days passed quickly in the village. Daniel stayed with Nira and her daughters, helping them care for the river gardens, teaching the children, and sharing simple lessons about the stars and the worlds beyond. Each morning began with the soft glow of the silver trees, and each evening ended with the lanterns drifting across the river. Life felt steady and full of purpose. Lyra and Miri had grown even more confident. They laughed freely, exploring the village and learning new things every day. Nira watched them with pride, her heart full, knowing they were safe and happy. Daniel often noticed how the mother and daughters shared small, quiet moments, a touch of a hand, a whispered word, a smile that spoke more than anything else. These moments reminded him of the true meaning of family. One morning, Daniel gathered the children and Nira near the newly planted trees by the river. The seedlings had begun to sprout, their tiny green shoots pushing through the soil. He told them that with care, these trees would grow strong and tall, just like the family they nurtured together. Lyra and Miri touched the young leaves gently, eyes shining with wonder. Nira smiled and thanked Daniel. She said the trees were not only a gift from him but also a promise of growth, life, and hope. Daniel nodded, realizing that his role in their lives had become more than teaching or helping. He had become a part of their story, and their story had become a part of him. As the suns rose high in the sky that day, a soft wind blew through the village. The silver trees swayed, the river shimmered, and the birds sang their melodic songs. Daniel felt a deep peace. He understood that life was not measured by distance traveled or treasures collected, but by the love shared and the lives touched. That evening, the village elders came together to hold a small ceremony. They thanked Daniel for his kindness, his patience, and his wisdom. They spoke of how he had changed the village, not only by teaching but by showing what it meant to care deeply. Daniel humbly accepted their words, feeling warmth in his heart. After the ceremony, Daniel sat with Nira by the river. Lyra and Miri played nearby, chasing small glowing insects. Nira took Daniel's hand gently and said that the family he had helped create would always be a part of him, no matter where he went. Daniel felt tears in his eyes, but they were tears of gratitude and understanding. He realized that his travels through the universe had prepared him for this moment. All the worlds he had seen, all the treasures he had collected, had led him here to a place where love, courage, and family mattered more than anything else. As night fell, the lanterns floated across the river one last time for that day. The village was quiet, peaceful, and full of light. Daniel looked at Nira and her daughters and knew that he had found something he had been searching for all his life. Not a distant world, not rare objects, but a connection that made life meaningful. He whispered to himself that every journey in the stars was worth it, if it led him to moments like this. The laughter of children, the love of a mother, and the trust shared between friends were treasures no galaxy could ever replace. Lyra and Miri ran to him one last time before the night fully settled. They handed him small flowers they had picked from the new trees. Daniel held them gently, feeling the soft petals against his fingers. He smiled and said that he would carry these moments in his heart forever. Nira placed her hand on his shoulder and said softly that life was full of beginnings, and even if journeys continued, love always remained. Daniel nodded, understanding that this was not an ending but a continuation. The bond they shared would grow stronger with each passing day, just like the seeds that would one day become towering trees by the river. As the stars reflected on the glowing water, Daniel looked at the village, the family, and the lights all around. For the first time, he felt fully at home, not on any planet, not in any ship, but in the hearts of those he loved and who loved him back. And in that quiet, shining night, Daniel knew he had discovered the greatest treasure in the universe, a family bound by trust, care, and endless love.